This conference will now be
Secretary
recorded.
Shelby.
Here, you were cutting out, but I believe we're calling roll call. Betsy Shockley here.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
All right. And member Sharon Hyde.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, no. You still can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Ooh, this internet. Yes, you can hear me now? No? Yes? Okay, good. All right. Member Eric Stevenson.
Present.
All right. Awesome. And we have another caller on. If it's board member Love, then if you could say present, that would be great. Otherwise, thank you for if we have a community member that's on. All right. All right, so we will move forward with the third agenda item, which is approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
All right, can we get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. That passes. The minutes from the previous meeting have been approved. All right, to the next agenda item, old business. So starting with updates from regarding the meeting requests with Shelby County Schools. So positive update. So we did get a response from Shelby County Schools, specifically with Dr. Whitelaw, which is Dr. Ray's right arm, and then also some other members of his cabinet are very enthusiastic about meeting with the commission. I'm going to forward you the list of dates that they provided so that we can find a common date for us all to meet with them. I think that once we kind of got through that layer of understanding about like why we exist, how we came to be, I think it definitely made things a little bit more comfortable. Also, of course, with the addition of our newest member, board member Love was very helpful with helping to navigate that space. So I'm really excited about that. And really interested in seeing what our collaboration could look like. Also, in the previous meeting, we had a few questions in regards to school reopening, which of course is a lot of heightened anxiety around that. So as it relates to lead specific issues, so those schools that had reported lead issues the last academic school year, so for 1920, yeah, I have to think about it. Those water sources are still out of commission. You have another layer of protection surrounding COVID. So it's another layer of protection as far as the use of water fountains, with it being a communal space, it still wouldn't be able to be used anyway because of issues with COVID. We're still awaiting. I'm just going to turn my camera off just to make sure that you all can hear me because it's popping up slow network connection. Okay. Can you all hear me better now? Yes, maybe.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Internet is a lie, will not stop me. All right, so we, of course, if you've been seeing in local media, are awaiting what the next, of course, priority is surrounding things. So that's positive. Wait, the bill has been reduced in the House. We don't anticipate any pushback with it kind of moving forward through the House again unanimously and then moving to the Senate floor. But again, we're kind of in limbo again because of COVID. but we did make some progress with getting some clarity around some of the inquiries that we had. So I want to open up the floor for any discussion or follow-up questions regarding meeting with SCS.
I have a question. With the water fountains are turned off because of COVID, but what about the water that's being used to cook, if they're going to be having lunches again once they reopen, or washing dishes, those faucets that were deemed high? And are they just looking at 20 and above parts per billion, or the 15 parts per billion like we suggested?
So they're still adhering to the statute as written, so they haven't incorporated the proposed amendments to the bill. That is a good question in regards to like what happens with the, like potable water for cooking. So I can follow back up with SCS to get clarity around that.
Because some of them were bathroom faucets, and even though that isn't a drinking source per design, if kids don't have a water fountain, they could easily be filling up their bottles of water at the sink in the bathrooms. So, you know,
Absolutely.
Yep, I got that down. I will do a follow-up with that. Those are definitely excellent questions. You know, even though we're still in the gray about when kids will return, we know at some point they have to go back. So I definitely think that it's a good idea to try to get in front of it. So I will pose those questions. Any other points of discussion for meeting and communicating with SCS?
My question primarily is what is the scope of how, I can't remember the number of how many schools were above that threshold at 20 parts per billion.
So it was rough. So it gets kind of complicated. So based on school number, it was approximately like around 30-ish. But when you look at the types of water sources, it's really diverse. So, for example, at one school, it could have been like a porcelain fountain that has been out of commission for decades, versus it being a sink, versus it being a water fountain. So that's one of the other things that we really focused on with making recommendations for amendments, is more transparency with reporting. So in some of our previous meetings, we talked about, you know, it not being really clear exactly, you know, what specific sources were tested, what those results were for those specific areas that were, or water sources that were tested in the buildings. I will push again, but one of the pieces of advice that was given was to do a FOIA request. So I'll follow up to see what we can do in regards to those next steps. We can, of course, always liaise with our new member, board member Love, to also help us to see if we can gain some additional insight on the specifics about the water sources that were tested in those schools. Yeah, we can do that.
Now, Latrice, on the prior test, I think it was in 2017, we did get much more detailed on where the sources were, versus this last test where they really just told us school names and numbers. So we do have some back data for the 17 taps that, you know, could be the same locations to compare to. But just for informational purposes, we do have the older test results specifically by location, unlike we do these last test results.
That's a good point. I put that in there. And I think the only drawback with the 2017 results is they did a random sample. So it's not all schools, but at least we will have a point of reference to say, hey, here's an example of what you did before. You know, can we please get these same types of data points or metrics, so we can have a full understanding of what's what, because it's real gray and ambiguous. I think that'll also be helpful from just a communication perspective, because when, no shade to Chalkbeat, but when Chalkbeat took the story, it looks like it's led everywhere in schools, right? In the school, and it could be one source. And it could be a source that's not even being used, but we don't know based on the information that was released. So I think that that is definitely a good point. What we can do, especially being that we are slated to meet with them again, or not again, but to meet with them, we can be prepared, you know, if we don't get the responses back in writing, we can still be prepared to discuss when we have that meeting. So I think
Is it
that's good.
possible to, I'm sorry, excuse me, may I ask a question? I've just kind of hopped in there.
Oh no, this is discussion, it's open.
Or is it possible to place the existing reports in the drive so we can review before we have that meeting? Just to, I know time has passed, COVID disrupted things. It'll be good to just kind of put some eyes on those reports again to understand I guess the scope of, even if it is old data, just to have a reference point to fully understand.
Yes, I can definitely do that, and then when it's received, I can put it in the file.
Thank you
But,
so much.
and just as an FYI, it's a public file, it's a public drive, you know, so whoever has accessibility to it, like if you go to the county commission website, we have everything transparent to the general public. So I want to go on record to say that.
By law, they are required to report all of the water testing results to the health department. So you may want to do a data request to the health department to get those fine details of what was tested, where it was tested, and what the results are.
Thanks, Betsy. Yes. All right.
I have a quick question.
Thank you.
The bill that you're talking about, is that House Bill 46 by Representative Lamar?
Could you repeat that? I apologize.
Sure. Hang on. I think my is on the other side of my mic. Is the bill number that you all are talking about, is it House Bill 46 by Representative Lamar?
It is. It is.
And do you all know who the Senate sponsor is going to be?
It should be Senator Akbari, so Ramesh. She should be carrying it.
And
She was slated to carry it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is it only going to pertain to Shelby County schools?
No, so this bill would actually impact every single county, every LEA or local education authority in the state of Tennessee. So it's not specific just to Shelby County.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Is there any additional points of discussion for this agenda item? All righty, moving on to the next item for old business, debriefing a meeting that we had some months back with the Shelby County Health Department regarding advocacy for county level funding. So that call was very productive. We had some good updates in regards to some funds that should be coming in from a federal perspective. So from EPA, which I'm really excited about. Of course, being that we now have a new president. So with the Biden-Harris administration, a lot went on today in regards to the new executive orders. So I, and this is just my opinion from observation, I foresee there being more opportunity for investment as it pertains to things surrounding lead and just environmental justice in general. But in that meeting, we also still talked about because of COVID, there has been a significant decline in testing for blood lead level testing, not just in Shelby County, but across the state and nationally. So what I'd like to do is just briefly open the floor for discussion to talk about what we could potentially do from a community perspective as it relates to getting more people engaged around getting kids tested. So I'll open the floor.
Well, this is my area of expertise. We definitely need a major campaign in Shelby County around lead. It's one of those things that is just not well known, and the public health issues that we have to deal with here in Shelby County, unfortunately, lead is just a blip on the radar when you're looking at HIV and STDs, and we really need just a strong media campaign to get the word out, to educate people to the hazards of lead poisoning.
And I think that's where Dr. Yan was going to want to talk to us about how Le Bonheur can be more proactive with this. I know that their community outreach team is very vested, and they have made a social determinants of health division under Le Bonheur that Senator Matabon is running, that's really looking at the housing unit, which goes back to where's the children getting poisoned, schools and homes and daycares and things like that. So they want to look at, Dr. Yan wants to look at how they can be more proactive. So I think that would be a good partnership to start looking at with, health and housing, and how we could get the word out more.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I wanted to provide some additional updates. So I had an opportunity to meet right before the New Year holiday. Had an opportunity to meet with Commissioner Jones as well as Commissioner Brooks, and City Councilwoman Rhonda Logan was on for a short period of time. And so essentially, we were saying we need an environmental justice plan. And so within that environmental justice plan, it would be fully comprehensive of things surrounding like infrastructure, but then also taking into consideration public health. And so I think that would be a really good opportunity to engage finally and do a hard ask for additional funding. There is a conservation committee meeting where I'm on the agenda for that meeting. And so what we can do is put in that request during that time. The sponsor that got us on the agenda was Commissioner Sawyer. So we do have an ally in that space. So it's all about just asking. And full transparency, when we were on that call, and this is not uncommon, there were some things that our elected officials were knowledgeable about, but then in other areas they were not. And so part of that engagement with county commission will be a little bit of an educational piece as well. So I will reach out, or need to reach out to you, Sharon, and Betsy, to provide some of your wealth of knowledge as we, I guess I go into that presentation. But it sounds really promising. We got some some firm commitments. And we, being on the agenda for a committee meeting is a pretty big deal. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. But of course, having like the solid facts and figures with Sharon and Betsy, that's your jam, will be very helpful. So did want to say that as well. And the meeting is next Wednesday. That committee meeting meets at 8:30. All right. Any
I'm
additional
sorry.
points of discussion? Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
When is that meeting again?
It is next Wednesday. Let me give you the exact date. It's next Wednesday at 8:30, and it's the Committee on Conservation, and it is the 3rd, February the 3rd. I can't believe next week is February. That's crazy.
Already.
What just happened?
So I was just going to add with, with getting the EPA Environmental Justice Grant in the county, that's going to be something showing, that EPA is looking at Memphis and the importance of, lead and lead hazards, as well as, we have somebody from Southeast Sustainability going over to housing to help lead their lead grant over there, which they have some education and outreach money also. And then, with the cities also has outreach money. So, there's some funding with both the city and county for some outreach. Just what's the best way to use it?
Mm-hmm. And that would be a good point, for what Betsy brought up. We got to get some more education awareness out there, but that takes coin. So I think that is some good connections to make there. Okay. Yay. All right. We can move on to new business. So we completed a full year. So while the commission actually was approved in September of 2019, we didn't have our first meeting until December of 2019. So we completed a full year in 2020. I'm pretty impressed with what we were able to get accomplished. We got a whole bill passed. That's a big deal. We got 100% of our recommendations included into that bill. I want to give a special shout out to Sharon and Betsy, who would not back down on that child care facility part. So really excited to see that was incorporated, and then seeing interest from EPA with the small grant that was awarded to the state of Tennessee to start. It's more so like a pilot of testing with child care facilities, but fingers crossed, if this bill goes through, then it'll be mandatory for all daycares and child care facilities. So very excited about that. Also, we got permission or access to engage on social media. As a millennial, I'm really excited about that. So we have an Instagram page and a Facebook page. I think that will be very helpful for us to have more visibility. And we have started to see more community members to engage with us directly, to kind of serve as a liaison between the commission and our elected officials. So very excited about that as well. So what I want to open the floor for discussion about is to discuss what should be our priorities for this calendar year. So the first piece of business that we were given our directives from the mayor's perspective, from Mayor Harris, was to focus on the accountability and community oversight of Shelby County schools with adhering to the lead bill. But we have a lot more latitude and flexibility. So I'll open the floor to discuss what are some additional priorities that we should consider for 2021.
Can I ask a question about last year?
Sure.
So y'all had a bill passed last year. Does anybody remember off the top of their head what that bill number have been?
It was, I can tell you if you give me 1 second. Uh, one moment. I want to say that it was 2017, but let me check.
That's right.
I want to add that to my bill list. Go back and read it.
Okay.
What awesome work y'all did last year.
Yep, it was HB 2017.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. This is also something that does not have to be confirmed tonight. I know it's quite a bit to think about, but did want to at least publicly put it on the agenda. It also may be a good idea to potentially engage with some community organizations to kind of get a pulse of what some of the specific concerns are from a community perspective. So I know there are some organizations like the Memphis Shelby County led Safe Collaborative, of course, GHHI was sharing, the Center for Transforming Communities. I hope that I said that correctly. Spark. So there's several organizations. Memphis Tilt, for example. So there's some other organizations that we can engage just to kind of get a pulse of what could contribute to our priorities that's more reflective of community members.
If I might add a suggestion, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think actually you named quite a few entities that I'd even forgotten about, such as the Center for Transforming Communities. It might be effective for us to kind of take a poll of what are existing entities within the community already. Take a look at what their mission or goals are and see which ones closely align with what we're trying to do. Because the challenge I can foresee is us losing scope or taking on too much scope and the focus being off of lead
Mm-hmm.
prevention, which creates it minimizes the impact sometimes. Not to say that the other issues aren't as important, but I think a lot of times, especially in a group as young as ours, we need to be in some ways laser focused. So I think if we kind of take a poll of the existing entities and which ones we can align with, and I think that'll tie back into to a degree of I think we talked earlier about marketing, for lack of a better term, creating awareness around the needs for awareness. And I mean, because honestly, we need to, I guess, expand our reach in ways without losing focus of our mission. So that's my suggestion, however long-winded it might be, but hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I love that point that you made because we're still young and there's a lot of EJ issues that exist. So I, definitely agree to make sure that we're staying aligned to the mission and vision of this commission and that we don't bite off more than we can chew. But at least like with that information, we can always make recommendations back to the county commissioners as well as the mayor's office about other considerations that they may need to make with addressing some of the concerns from the community. So I think that makes sense. It's a good idea.
And the lead text group. Their primary focus too is water too, is getting MLG&W and get some, looking at remediating some of the lead water lines and having more education and outreach to people about who does live on lead water lines and how to get water testing. So I don't know if that's something we want to look at too, is the water issue, especially with the one water that we just came across that was so high. So that's just something to think about too, is the lead water in the school, but the lead water in our homes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made me think about a update that's still connected that I had not shared. So one of the things that I think is critical is for there to be improved data around where are the lead service pipelines. So we know we have that GIS map, but it hasn't been updated since 2015. Additionally, it doesn't capture all of the impacted residences, so all the impacted homes. So I think that it's imperative to do a lot of pushing on the MLGW side. One of the things that came from a SES or a Shelby County Schools perspective is that, yes, this bill is great, where, there is some accountability, but it feels like the accountability is so much so on the school district, but there is not currently a lot of teeth or enough teeth as it relates to utility services. So in this case, MLGW. So I definitely think that definitely needs to be a priority. Yeah. Okay. All right. Another item, and this is going to feel a little bit different, but still very much so our priority. So since we have completed one calendar year, according to the LPC bylaws, we are mandated, that might be a harsh word, but I guess based on our governing document, we are to conduct elections. So right now, our current officers, so I currently serve as chair. Dr. Carlisha Whitlow serves as co-chair. Secretary is Betsy Shockley. And those are actually the only 3 offices that we have. What I do want to do is open the floor for discussion about adding some additional roles. One of those roles that I was thinking about, and I'd like to open it for discussion, is the role of parliamentarian. So when you, of course, look at the county commissioners, when you look at all of the government agencies even, there's a parliamentarian, and so we don't have one. And so for example, like if Catrice, who's our assigned attorney, she's an attorney, so she has a lot going on. I think that it's important for us to have internal accountability for the flow of our meetings. So I'll stop there and just open the floor for discussion about potentially amending the bylaws to add the role of parliamentarian, and then any other office that you think would be beneficial to this body. So I'll stop there.
Point of order, just for clarity to understand. Are we also to solidify or revote tonight for the offices?
Could you repeat that question again for me?
Are we also going to vote, besides having this discussion about the
Yes,
about the offices? We're also voting? Is that correct?
that is correct.
Oh, okay.
But before we move into the actual vote, so that we can just do one vote, just establish if there are other items or other positions that we want to consider. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Any thoughts on parliamentarian?
My thoughts align with your initial statements of in aligning our young board to be positioned to do and be as effective as the other commissions within the county. I think adding the role of parliamentarian is in line with that. So I think that is a good suggestion. And for a point of discussion, I recommend we move forward with that. That would be my suggestion.
I agree.
Okay.
Hey,
Can we, sorry.
no, I'm
Somebody
muting
said
myself because I have a rambunctious baby behind me.
Oh, okay. Okay, my friend. Okay, so can I get a motion?
What are we
I move that
motioning?
we
Oh, yeah. Can we get a motion for amending the bylaws to add the role of parliamentarian?
so moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, that motion passes. We will amend the current bylaws for the Lead Prevention and Sustainability Commission to add the role of parliamentarian. Before we move forward to nominations for officers, and the officers that we will be voting on will be chair, co-chair, it's vice chair, the thing. I'm trying to get my language together, sorry. Secretary, and the new addition of parliamentarian. Are there any considerations for additional roles that we would like to add? And again, these roles don't have to be like quote unquote executive level roles, but are there any ad hoc roles that we want to consider? Floor open for discussion. We good with these four?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think these four are
And if we
functional
see
for the
that
time being.
okay, and it's not that many of us, so
Right, we have
I
a
don't want
small
to get
group.
overboard. Right. All righty, so we can start with nominations for chair. Do we have any nominations that we would like to set forth?
I nominate Latricia Adams to continue as chair.
Second. I don't know if we do
I
a
second
second at this point. We don't. Okay.
Thanks, guys. All right, moving into the role of vice chair. Do we have nominations that we would like to bring forward?
I nominate Clarissa to continue as vice chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All right, moving forward to the position of secretary. Do we have a nomination to bring forward?
I nominate Elizabeth Stockley to continue as secretary.
I think I'm going to
Yay!
have to decline nomination
Oh, okay.
because I am going to be retiring in the next 5 months or so. So I won't be on the board
Look
for
at
about
Curly's
another 6
face.
What?
months.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I held that
so
secret tight.
I would like to nominate Sharon Hyde as secretary. I think she would
I
make a
second
Do
great
we
that
have a
secretary.
second?
I second that nomination.
Okay. Okay. Do you accept your nomination, Sharon? Oh, I didn't hear because my computer is slow.
Okay.
Was that a yes? Sorry. Can y'all hear me? Oh, internet.
I can hear you.
Okay. Sharon accepted.
Yes.
Sounds begrudgingly. But can we get a second?
Second.
All right. Sharon Hyde is now the new secretary for the Lead Prevention and Sustainability Commission, and moving to our last office, the Office of Parliamentarian.
For Eric Stevenson to be parliamentarian.
I second
Obviously.
that. Second that emotion.
Okay. All right. Do you accept your nomination, Eric?
I do. I accept.
All right. So congratulations, the new parliamentarian, the first parliamentarian of the Lead Prevention and Sustainability Commission, Eric Stevenson. Yay! So you could keep us in order. Yes.
Hopefully, I don't have
All
to
right.
break out my old sergeant skills. So.
Uh-oh.
You know, you got to do what you got to do.
Hey, I bought that Robert's Rules of Order book a year ago.
Me too.
To brush
Man,
up.
we've
Just
come
to
a
brush
long
up.
way.
Uh-huh.
We've come a long way because I didn't know what was going on.
I
And
keep a
I've
cheat
been in
sheet
the
for all
whole
my meetings.
sorority for like,
What is that?
what you had there?
I keep a Robert's Rules of Order cheat sheet.
Can you send that to me?
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Right.
Please, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll send it to the group.
He's already getting us in
Y'all, I
order.
struggled in that first meeting.
We all struggle, honey. You were not by yourself.
I was so
No,
glad that the attorney was there because I was like, can I do this? Can I say this?
Mhm.
And she was
said,
like,
no.
here's a book that you can get.
yeah, I was
All right, awesome. All right. So, still on the same agenda item. So just for we want to round up this particular item. So as it relates to priorities for 2021, our next step is to get a poll of some existing community organizations to see where there is alignment, but also being cautious to make sure that we are still in alignment with the purpose, mission, vision of this commission. Um, is that our next step? Just for point of clarity.
Mhm.
All right. Awesome sauce. All right. Moving to the next new business item. So content for the first annual report. So according to the bylaws, one of the things that we have to produce and share with the general public is an assessment of Shelby County Schools implementation of the lead bill. So we know that we have to include that. We also can highlight, of course, the bill that made it through the House, but COVID was a hater, so it didn't make it to the Senate floor. But we can also highlight that in the annual report as well. We also can include other engagements that we've had with constituents of the county. Are there other recommendations to be included or that we need to explore including in our first annual report? I guess to narrow it in, when we talk about assessment of implementation of the bill, personally, I would like to get some insight on what that should entail. You can't see me. I'm looking at Sharon and Betsy. You can't see my eyes.
No, we can't.
I'm wondering, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, I'm wondering, I think that there's a report that we could use as a reference from Maryland, the state of Maryland, because they've been having like a statewide commission. Ooh, what, since the 90s? I don't know. So that might be a good point of reference to kind of give us the framework of what we can look at, since this will be our first. Any thoughts on that? I'll open the floor for discussion.
Yeah, I think that's a
Sounds
good
like a
idea.
good plan. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have a copy of that. For anyone listening outside of the commission, if you Google, and I'll make sure it'll be reflected in the minutes as well, but if you Google the Maryland State Lead Commission, you should be able to pull up their site. And there should be some archive reports of reference, which will be what we will be referencing. This for a point of transparency. Are there any other items? Oh, also including the work, the advocacy work with the health department, with outlining what some of the needs were and the engagement with EPA, I think can also be included. And then Sharon, do you think, I mean, because both you and I were still like in the mix there, do you think we should also include the work around the EPA EJ grant also? That was a
Yes.
lot. Okay. Ooh, man, y'all, that ooh, an EPA grant is not an easy task. Okay. All right, awesome. I'm excited about this annual report. The next item, I've already discussed the debrief of the Environmental Justice Roundtable. The Environmental Justice Roundtable was the meeting that I referenced earlier on the agenda, which was a meeting with Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Brooks, and for a short period of time, Councilwoman, Memphis City Councilwoman Rhonda Logan. So again, the next step would actually be to present a community-based plan around environmental justice, and the preliminary presentation again will take place at the Committee on Conservation with the County Commission on February the 3rd. That meeting starts at 8:30 a.m. I'll follow up again with both Sharon and Betsy specifically for any data references you may be able to contribute. I know you all have a ton. Any questions about that agenda item before we move to our last item? All right. So with our last item, we actually kind of covered this also, talking about the community engagement and outreach piece. So I think that advocacy around, not advocacy, but the educational awareness component around testing. So for lead level, I can't get that out, testing through the Shelby County Health Department, I think is an excellent next step as far as us getting more visibility and then being able to be inclusive of both the health department, and we could potentially get some buy-in and support from the city side as well. I think, in my opinion, I think that's enough. I don't want to bite off more than we can chew. I know we all got full-time jobs. I open it up for any additional comments or thoughts, as that being like our anchor for community engagement. Cool.
Sure.
I think that's a solid start.
Good year.
Yeah. All right. All right, and so moving into the last portion of our agenda, which is announcements. I got way too excited and kind of went out of order about social media engagement. Excited about that. I already mentioned about the IG page and Facebook. We have a Twitter too. I forgot about Twitter. So we have a Twitter as well. We also have a YouTube account, which is super special because now we can post like videos of these meetings, which will really be cool. And then as we start to expand our engagement, we can also put any other digital media there as well. So that's my announcement there. And then the last item with House Bill 46. So House Bill 46 is the same bill that Representative Lamar introduced in the last legislative session, which was originally numbered at House Bill 2017. I don't foresee there being any additional changes to that bill. If there are, then of course, I will update everyone. But the plan from Representative Lamar is just to reintroduce it for logistical purposes so that we can get it to the Senate and get it passed. If you go to the Tennessee General Assembly website, you go to the House Bill 46 page, you'll see the progress thus far. So it's already been filed and it's moving in its preliminary stages. So you can always go there to stay up to date on where the bill is on the docket. All right. All right. And with that, do we have any additional announcements? Thank you, Sherry. Do we have any additional announcements that we would like to share before we move to conclude our first meeting of 2021? All right. I see smiles and whatnot. Yay. All right. If there are no further announcements, I would like to move to conclude our meeting of the Lead Prevention and Sustainability Commission at 7:56 p.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all so much. And Betsy, you can send me if you took minutes, you can send it to me. But it's recorded, so you don't have to. All righty. Thanks, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your night. Congratulations, new
great day.
officers. All right, good night.
Good night.